Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back. Today's video is going to be one that several of you have asked for. Today I'm going to discuss Bella's biological dad. So I'm going to hop right into it, and it's kind of going to be a quick one because I'm still super uncomfortable with this topic. Not for me. Well, I mean, I guess for me too. So in August of 2013, after Bella and I had been home from prison for, let's see, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. So for about 6 months, Bella and I had been home. Her biological father, who was estranged from us, we were actually in the process of going to court for custody, for me to get full custody of Bella, which I had previously, a few months before, been awarded because he was found to be so unfit, and there had been, his grandfather was a pedophile and lived close by, and his mother had previous sexual allegation charges that I did not know. I found all this out as it was brought to light in court, and I was flabbergasted, to say the least. So I won full custody when I was still living in Broome County, working in the state building through the parole program and stuff. I had moved back to my parents July 4th of 2013, that weekend. I had originally asked if I could have permission to go and spend July 4th weekend with my parents, and I was granted that permission by parole. And then I had also been in the process of trying to request a transfer, and it was granted, and they said, you know what, when you go for the weekend, that's it, like that'll be your final move. So I was totally cool with that. A couple weeks went by, I started walking at the laundromat, getting my feet under me, yada, 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 and then boom. He, looking back on it now, when it happened, I didn't understand. So when this situation happened, I knew very, 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 very little about methamphetamines. I had never seen them before. I had never done them before. And they weren't, to my knowledge, they weren't a popular topic around here. It was really, at the time, it was really like, I mean, it's always been weed, if you even count that as a drug, because I don't. But, it had always been heroin and opiates. That had always been the thing. But, he, now thinking back to his behavior and the way he acted in the situation and how it went about, he definitely had to be on meth. He, one day, I guess, a couple of days before, ironically, I feel like I'm like all over the place, but this is how this goes in my mind when it comes to this topic. So bear with me, guys. Like, this is actually a super hard video for me to do, but I feel like the more I talk about it, the more healing I will do. And maybe if someone else, God forbid, is ever in this situation where their life becomes a freaking movie scene, they'll be able to deal with it better. So bear with me, guys. So, oh my goodness, and my cat is totally trying to dig through a garbage bag right now with surprises in it for Jess's daughters, actually. So sorry if you guys hear that. But so anyway, back on topic. So a few years after all this happened and I was with my husband, a mutual friend of he and I's was like, oh my God, you're his ex. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, how do you know? And he was like, Jen, he's like, I'm the one who sold him the gun. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, I also picked him up after he was leaving such and such to go to the next place. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it was like the puzzle pieces started to finally fit together. So he had ended up absconding for parole because he too was on parole, like I previously told you guys. His mental health was very, very unstable. While he was incarcerated, he was diagnosed bipolar, anxiety, depression, PTSD, things like that. He had been sexually abused his whole life. I did not know that until very later on. He had trauma that he never dealt with. So he resorted to drugs and alcohol, like most of us do that suffer trauma. Kind of goes hand in hand. So he, I guess, got a plan in his head that he didn't want to be here anymore. But in the meantime, I guess he felt like he had hurt other people. So he went out one day, and I'm not going to go completely into detail, but I'm going to give you guys a very loose description of what happened. He ended up holding people hostage. He had never met Bella. He never met Bella, and he never laid eyes on her. So thank God for that in one sense, because it would have been a lot harder to, as a child who didn't have the mental capacity to understand, you know, because she was a baby, man. She was what, 20 months old? Yeah, I think. So, you know, I didn't have to explain that to her then. I mean, I have to explain it to her a little bit now, and when she gets older, I'll have to explain it to her, which sucks. But he had a shot. Well, he had several guns throughout the day. He had a handgun. He had a shotgun. He held his mom and his stepdad hostage in their trailer in Bovina Center, New York. His mom had to lay over his stepdad because he was trying to shoot him. And he had a very strong bond with his mom. She was the only one who ever really consistently was there, even though she sexually abused him. It was just he lived a horrible life. So he shot up their trailer because they lived in a trailer. He also ended up calling the police and parole, and arguing with them, and, you know, going through a whole thing with them. And he stole a four-wheeler, and he went over the mountain to the opposite side of the property. So, like, he lived on one side of the mountain. He took the four-wheeler over that to the house that was behind it. Really, really nice couple lived there. He went in, basically just broke right into their house. They were both inside. And he held them hostage. He held them hostage probably for around roughly like 3 hours. And then he let the wife go. He let the wife go in a random weird situation. Mind you, during this time, the police showed up. They were outside trying to talk to him on the phone, you know, trying to coax him out, trying to talk him down. My daughter has a half brother that lives in Virginia, and he was on the phone with he has actually two boys with someone else. My daughter has two half brothers from a different mother, same father. He was on the phone with her, and the police were trying to get her to talk him down. I was not involved in the situation because he had previously, I just wasn't involved in it at that point. I'll do another video about this maybe in a little bit when I'm more comfortable with the entire story, so you guys are just going to get the gist. I'm trying to protect my daughter, and these things are forever, so I'm just giving you guys a general rundown. He ended up going upstairs. They had like a sauna in their house, a sauna bathroom, if you would call it, you know. And after, I think he was there like 12, 13 hours, you know, he went upstairs and he ate a shotgun and he committed suicide. I had an amazing parole officer at the time who did everything to protect my daughter and I from the repercussions that went with him committing suicide. He kept my daughter and I's name private still to this day, and all the paperwork were not mentioned. I'm just mentioned as the wife because that's what I was. He made me a widow. You know, my parole officer at the time, who was also his, went down and signed the death certificate for me because I was next to kin, so I didn't have to go and ID the body. I was able to change Bella's last name to my maiden name. The judge granted me that. Let's see what else. Just, you know, it's just, suicide is, let's say this, mental illness is no joke. You know, maybe if he would have gotten the proper treatment that he needed, maybe he'd still be here today and maybe he'd be a good dad. I really don't know. The this was a relationship that I jumped into and I shouldn't have. I mean, on one hand, I'm super grateful to him because I have the most precious thing I've ever had in my life, and that's my daughter. And she's amazing. Makes me sad that one day I'll have to explain this to her, but I will, because she deserves to know, and she needs to always be conscious of her mental health and how she's feeling. You know, both her parents, her biological parents, are addicts, and she's not the type of kid that can experiment and be like, hey, I'm just trying this out, because that's what kids my age do. I'm worried, you know, God forbid she invokes her addiction that's inside of her, because we all know we're genetically dispositioned for it. So, yeah, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. I will always have love in my heart, oddly enough, for him, for giving me my baby girl. I could not have created the exact same baby without him. And she's freaking amazing. She is the constant ray of sunshine in my life. She's beautiful. She's super intelligent, and she melts my heart, and she's everything amazing that he and I ever have been in our lives. But sadly, because he and I couldn't seem to get our shit together, you know, me now finally, only took me my whole life, you know, better late than never, right? But him, you know, she's got to grow up without a biological father. And when she first found out about it, she asked me, like, why? What happened? And I was like, well, Daddy was sick and he didn't take his medicine, so Daddy passed away. She was 5, 6. She was 6 when she first asked, because she overheard my mom talking about it on the phone, which was totally inappropriate, but shit happens. And, you know, she said things to me like, I don't have your feet. My feet are fat. I don't have your feet, Mom. Nope, you have your daddy's feet. Like, I don't know what to say to her. You know, she has chubby cheeks. I clearly don't. She knows she gets that from him. You know, but she's convinced he was a good man, and I let her have that because she needs to. But he was not a good man to me. And while I was pregnant, he beat me as much as he possibly could. He drank all the time. You know, we did not have a good relationship. We had a very domestic, violent relationship all the time. There was no goodness. He constantly lied to me. He constantly spent money on drugs. You know, at the time I was completely sober. I was pregnant. So I have to put my feelings and my experiences with this man aside for my baby. You know, I'm super grateful my husband came into the picture when Bella was only 3. Made my life a lot easier. I remember the first day she called him Daddy. It was the first time she ever said it, you know? I mean, not she ever said it to someone. It wasn't the first time she ever spoke it. But, you know, she was confused at first. Like, hey, people in school have a dad. Why don't I, you know? It's very hard when you have a child who you love more than the air you breathe, but the person you created her with gives you nightmares. And that's literally what it was for me. I had nightmares for years after this. And I mean, it got to the point that until I had a crazy nightmare where my husband and Bella were involved and her father, and my husband stepped up and did the manly thing, we'll say, in my dream to her biological father, the nightmares finally stopped, because before that they were intense. Yeah, I know this video is kind of very surfacey, but eventually it won't be. But for right now, that's kind of how it has to stay for me and my mental health. You guys were curious to know what happened, and that's the basic story of it. I appreciate all the love and support that I'm getting from you guys, and thank you. More than you know, thank you. And I hope this answers some of your questions. And I will see you in a couple days. Bye.